Today is my second video on Pokemon into D&D. I'm probably going to stop numbering them, but whatever. Still going to do them in order. Today I'm going to be talking a bit more about types and stuff, and how they translate into my version of the game. And obviously, all of this is not final. Creative liberty goes over every single rule that I do. At least for me, unless it's like impossible by the standards of D&D. Like if I want to make a new damage type, that I can't do that obviously. But like for example, psychic damage isn't always psychic moves. It could be something else as well. So I'm going to be going through all the types and just going through what damage type is most likely to correlate to it. And if there is no damage type, I could say that it could be all of them. And it could be none of them at the same time. But before you go, as I said at the start of this video, before you go looking around on the Lake Guardian, that's my name, the name of my D&D account. You can go and look at all the Pokemon stuff from there. Before you start going on looking on there and think, oh my god, I can't believe you, Ollie. You had Ice Shard doing piercing damage instead of cold damage like you said it would. I was like, shut up. It's creative liberty is what matters most to me. Creative liberty is what matters. This is what makes my stat blocks different. This is what makes them not just, oh, this one does this damage or whatever. Mine always has to be different. And if that rolls around having Ice Shard do piercing damage instead of cold damage, or having Psy Shock be a ranged attack instead of a burst of a cone or something, then so be it, and I'll do it however the hell I want, and you can't make me do anything except call me an idiot in the comments, so that's probably going to upset me and make me cry at night. Please don't do that. First we have normal. Normal is usually bludgeoning damage, because it's like punches and stuff, but there will be other moves like a Hyper Beam, which will be different, obviously. Regarding immunities and stuff, and resistances, they will sometimes be resistant or immune to necrotic damage, because that, as we'll later on find out, is our equivalent of the ghost type, and obviously they're not effective by ghost types. Fighting, also bludgeoning, weak to psychic damage, because that's how it is in the game. It's probably also weak to radiant, because radiant is going to represent fairy. And if there's anything I forget, it's because I forgot it, and that's it. Flying is I don't know. I really don't know. Flying could be anything. It could be anything you could ever dream of, except for poison, because that would be weird. Or psychic. Or maybe there is a situation where it makes sense. Who knows? Psychic is weak to lightning damage and cold, because that is how it works in the games with ice and electric. So yeah, let's keep going. Poison is surprisingly enough, is poison type damage. Little special mechanic for you guys regarding poison. They cannot be poisoned in Pokemon, and also cannot be poisoned at my D&D stuff. And if it says that they can be poisoned, it's because I fucked up or some other weird random shit. However, they can still take poison damage, but they are resistant to it, not immune. And they're also weak to psychic damage, because that is how it is in the games, and that's how it is in this one too. Ground could be a lot of things. I really don't know what type of damage ground type moves will do. Bludgeoning? Sometimes they'll do something else? I don't know. Regarding their weaknesses and stuff, they are, from what I remember, weak to cold, and they resist fire, and they are immune to lightning. Rock is bludgeoning. It could be other things too. It's weak to cold, I think. I might just be wrong. It's resistant to fire, and probably something else too. Lightning. I have no idea what bug is going to be. It's really going to depend. Like, bug bite's going to be obviously piercing, and then all the other moves like signal beam. Signal beam might be radiant or force, depending on how I'm feeling that day. Who knows? But obviously bug is weak to fire damage. Ghost at the moment is necrotic because ghosts and death are very intertwined. And necrotic is death. Ghosts are, well, they should be weak to necrotic, but it feels weird, especially considering that real D&D ghosts are immune to necrotic, so that's weird. I don't know what to do about it, really. Also, ghosts can't be frightened in my version, because they're ghosts and they do the scaring, and it'll be weird if you could scare the scarer. Steel is the type which is hard, which is why it is weak to fire, because obviously it melts it, and I believe it resists cold damage, but steel type moves will usually be slashing or piercing, but like I'm thinking of swords for some reason, and there aren't that too many steel type moves that involve swords, and it really depends, like a lot of these. Fire is, of course, fire damage. It is, in fact, you might be surprised, it's not weak to cold, and it doesn't resist cold either. This is because cold, as you'll like to find out, is both ice type and water type, and kind of clashes with the whole fire thing. So yeah, water will usually be cold, but it could also be cold and bludgeoning, because it's so, like, hydro pump, for example, isn't just, oh, this thing is so cold. It's a lot, oh my god, I just got hit in the face by fuck tons of water. So cold is weak to lightning damage. No, water is weak to lightning damage, and it's probably also weak to other things. No, it's not, actually. But it is resistant to fire. Regarding damage types, grass could literally be anything. I have no idea. But regarding damage, vulnerabilities and resistances, it's obviously vulnerable to cold and fire. But that's it, really. I know cold can also be water, but cold is usually ice, okay? And I know that kind of convolutes with what I said about fire. I know about what I said, but cold was also neutral to fire back in Gen 1. And that probably counts for something. Lightning is electric. Well, electric is lightning, sorry. Other way around. It is resistant to lightning, really. I can't, there's nothing else. Yeah, because obviously ground, oh wait, sorry, remember this bit. Lightning cannot be paralyzed, and in some cases it can't be stunned either, because in the games, at least recently, you cannot paralyze an electric type. So that's what's happening here too. Psychic is obviously psychic damage, but maybe not always, because sometimes it could change. But yeah, it's mostly going to be psychic. They're vulnerable to necrotic damage, and they resist psychic. Ice is cold. Ice is very cold. They resist cold damage and are vulnerable to fire damage. And they usually do cold damage, as the name implies. Dragon is a really hard thing to classify, because it could be loads of things. It could be a claw from a dragon, which could do slashing damage. Could be Hyper Dragon Beam. Dragon Pulse, sorry. That's what it's called. I don't know where Hyper Dragon Beam came from. That should be like a Mega Evolution, Dynamax Attack, or whatever. Could be anything, really. Could be Force, it could be anything. But regarding its weaknesses, vulnerabilities are Radiant, because Radiant is fairy, and it's also to cold, because they do not know how to put on coats, and also they're weak to ice damage. And they resist fire, and they also resist lightning. For the most part, Dark is necrotic, but Ghost is also necrotic. So it's a weird thing to say, but Dark will usually be vulnerable to Radiant, because Radiant is fairy, and fairy kills Dark in the games. and they're immune to psychic, because they're immune to psychic in the games. And finally, we have fairy. Fairy is usually radiant, but it could also be many other things. Fairy is vulnerable to poison damage. Yeah. They also cannot be charmed, because, at least in my opinion, charms and stuff, that's heavily associated with fairy stuff, because, to be honest, with charms, in this case, if you look at typical charms, it's less like, oh, she's so pretty. It's much more hypnotism and, like, fucking around with your emotions and stuff. And, like, a lot of the charms in my stuff is going to be attract and stuff, which is often cuteness, but it's often just going to be fairy powers, putting someone into a love-struck trance, because fairy powers and stuff. And it's hard to flirt with someone who's good at flirting, because they know exactly what the fuck you're trying to do. There's also the stellar type and the question mark type, because I know if I don't mention these, people will kill me. They don't count. I'm not going to be doing Terrapagos for a long time, and when it does come up, I'll figure it out on the fly, and I'll mention it in that episode. With the question mark type, it doesn't apply anymore. It used to be a thing back in Diamond and Pearl. Maybe when I give a Pokemon curse, which hasn't happened yet, even though I've already done, I've actually already done a third of the Pokemon. It hasn't come up yet, but when it does, I'll figure it out, and it's probably just going to be necrotic if it does any damage, because now it's ghost type, so it doesn't really matter as well. And Stellar, let's be real here, not really a real thing. It's not a real thing if only one fucking Pokemon has it in one fucking situation. It isn't real. I know people who, like, oh yeah, Kitakami's a real region. No, it isn't. Shut up. It's a fucking island with a mountain on it. Right, that was my type video. There was a lot to say, and there was a lot to not say, because a lot of those, like the rock bug ground, for example, was just like, I don't fucking know what damage it was, and a lot of it is just going to be guessing on the fly. And that's just how it is. It's a lot of interpretation. Which is why, so, I don't know if you remember in the Bulbasaur video, I pointed out someone else who'd also done this. They did it for 151 original Pokemon, and I don't want to call them out, because, it feels kind of rude to do it, because I am slagging them off, as the kids say in Britain, which is where I am. But basically, they really, like, solidly assigned specific types to specific things, and sometimes they wouldn't make sense, like giving grass radiant damage, because, like, it works for Solar Beam, sure, but what about Vine Whip? Or any other move? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's always depending on something. Like, Vine Whip will not be radiant. For example, Draining Kiss isn't gonna be radiant. It might be psychic damage. Or, like, for example, Meteor Beam isn't gonna be bludgeoning. It's gonna be force. And it's all dependent on the artist's interpretation. At least that's what I'm trying to elaborate upon in these videos, because I think that that's one of the most important parts of making a stat block. Alright, thank you, bye. This is a very long yet quick video where I just kind of talk really fast, and I swear the others will be less quick with my talking, because I don't know, it wasn't really necessary. I was like, yes, I don't know. When I was making this video, there's no script for this. You can probably tell by the amount of times I mess up and I just kind of go, I'll leave it in. But there's no script for this, and I kind of went, yes, I can bang this out in 7 minutes. And now the runtime is about 15 minutes long, so I've overrun quite a bit. And this is longer than some of my whole videos on some video games. So wow, what a surprise. Anyway, have fun. and I'll see you later. Bye bye.